Okay, so again, thanks to you. Thanks for the opportunity also speaking here. I heard great things. So Michael Stipe, one of my friends, he was recommending you one of the first meetups to attend to or to connect me to also. Okay, so today I will talk a bit about Rider, JetBrains Rider. I would say is the most productive .NET IDE. Certainly, it's cross-platform. And yeah, if you have any questions during the talk, feel free to also interrupt me. I don't mind. I think it's better. It's also a bit more interactive. I will try to keep an eye on the chat. It might happen that I don't see it, so better just interrupt me. That's fine. And yeah, I will just tell you a couple of things. So next slide. This is not about lightning talks. It was funny because you had a similar picture, but it's yeah. I just found it funny. Maybe you're also kind of reminded of the famous song. Certainly, people ask me quite often if it's inspired. I mean, if the name is inspired somehow. The best I can tell you is that that the R stands for ReSharper and IDE inside is like, yeah, it's the IDE. And but there are a couple of other, legends around that name. This I included because I thought it's funny. So yeah, I hope I explained the story right. But anyway, so this picture here I included because I thought it's funny. It was one of our first attempts to make ReSharper a standalone .NET IDE. At that time, I think you can tell. I mean, this is the Windows Forms times, and you see some fancy rendering of XML doc comments. But I honestly don't know exactly how much that effort was pursued. But I know that with the announcement that .NET is going cross-platform, we of course had the motivation to bring something cross-platform, to make ReSharper or particularly .NET development available cross-platform. And what that resulted in Rider. And particularly interesting in Rider is the architecture, because on the one hand, we have ReSharper, which was previously, let's say, just an extension to Visual Studio. But now on Mac and Linux, we need some kind of front end, because ReSharper, for most part, doesn't define any front end, UI and stuff like that. And what we did was taking IntelliJ IDEA as a platform for the front end. And I'm sure you've heard in IntelliJ IDEA. I'm sure you've heard about other. Hello, Stefan. You heard about other IDEs like WebStorm, IntelliJ IDEA, the normal one for Java and Kotlin, or PHP Storm, PyCharm, numerous IDEs actually. And excuse me. And the question is, how can we make those two communicate with each other? And that was, well, basically what we did was implementing a lightweight protocol in Kotlin, our own language based on Java, which is highly interprocedural and reactive and all those fancy attributes. It's just fast, basically. And what happens is that the JVM front end running into the IntelliJ platform uses that protocol to communicate with the ReSharper host, which runs on .NET Framework or .NET Core, depending on where you're running Rider. So there was a time when we were even using Mono on non-Windows systems to run the ReSharper host. Nowadays, this is on .NET Core. For Windows, I must honestly say, currently, I'm not entirely sure what ReSharper host runs on Windows, but I think it's still .NET Framework. So yeah, and that also brings the huge benefit, .NET Core, the whole performance improvements and stuff like that. So this is working out pretty great so far. And you can think of the IntelliJ platform being like the front end to the ReSharper host backend. And to have one example of that is this is an image taken from Rider. So you see this enumerable currently is unresolved, let's say, and why I have the caret at this particular position. What happens is when I hit enter or alt enter, the shortcut that or the most important shortcut in ReSharper and Rider, what happens is that the front end calls to the back end and says alt enter was hit. And then the backend already knows, okay, your current position is this and that particular position. And what I can offer you to fix that or to show in the alt enter menu are the following items. And that could, for instance, include, the response that is sent basically could include like the icon, the text, and some kind of reference that when you decide to actually execute that action, then to report back like this action was selected. Okay, one more diagram here. So we already talked about the left-hand side here, Rider front end, ReSharper backend. But the reality is, and I think this already is a quite interesting architecture, because I don't know about any other application that uses the JVM and .NET. But there's something more going on actually, and that is the ReSharper backend also calls out to some other processes, which is there's a separate process for the debugger, for roster analyzers, and for the XAML preview renderer. If you happen to be on Windows, I can't show it today because I'm purely on Mac these days. But Rider on Windows also comes with a XAML preview renderer. So this also sits in a separate process. I could add some others as well, like Unity, for instance. With Unity, the architecture is similar. There's another process sitting in the Unity editor, which communicates with ReSharper, and then, or I'm not entirely sure, maybe directly with the Rider front end in that case. But yeah, it's a multi-process architecture of an application, so to say. Sometimes, especially in the beginning, and I still have this slide in my presentation, but especially in the beginning, people were asking, okay, or even had sometimes wrong assumptions and thought we will re-implement ReSharper based on Java or something. But the reality is that quite a large portion of ReSharper and Rider code, or ReSharper code, is shared with Rider. That is what's not included, to be more precise, is stuff like front end UI. So, for instance, a couple of option pages in ReSharper, they were written in XAML, for instance, or in forms. I think it's what was also allowed. So they, of course, cannot be reused with a Java front end. Meanwhile, this is also moving towards defining option pages in pure code, and those UI parts are completely, let's say, shareable and cross-platform. What's also not included in the shared code is the TypeScript and JavaScript support, because instead of taking it from ReSharper, instead, it's funny because we kind of had the choice there, but WebStorm seemed like the better option, let's say. So for all the web stuff, we're taking WebStorm as support for these languages. Yeah, and I think that's about it. So whenever the ReSharper team implements something about, language features like new context actions and all that stuff, Rider will automatically inherit it. But that's not where the party stops, so to say, because let me switch one further. IntelliJ also allows us to kind of inherit a lot of features, not just existing ones, like I will go through in a second, but also new ones. Like, for instance, IntelliJ at one point when Apple introduced the touch, how's it called? Touch bar. Then, of course, the IntelliJ team was trying to integrate that, and they finally did it. And the Rider team didn't do, at least to my knowledge, didn't do anything. We just inherited the work that the IntelliJ team was doing from this touch bar and just had it. We just had it. And of course, we also inherit all the wonderful features that existed before. Like, for instance, VCS integration. That's definitely my favorite. Closely followed by the command line, because I'm not sure if I will show it today, but the command line can actually do much more than just running your commands. It could also, if it knows how to do it, you can actually trigger project debug sessions from the command line. Bookmarks, so some simple stuff. I don't actually use that, but also custom themes. Search everywhere is like the main feature, which is, well, search everywhere also ReSharper has it, but search everywhere in IntelliJ is a step further, because it also includes all the settings and Git commits actually are also included meanwhile. And then we also have scratch files, which you can think of something like a little notepad for different languages. So you can choose, up to you. It can be a C# file, but it can also be Markdown or HTTP requests. I will certainly look at that or look with you at that. You can easily compare files and also different revisions. The To-Do Explorer, okay, most of the IDEs have that, and the 2000 plus, I don't know what the exact number is, plugins. Those were plugins that partially existed before Rider even, but now we kind of benefit from this great ecosystem of plugins. And just to nail it down again, so these parts that we inherit from IntelliJ IDEA, those are all language agnostic for most part, let's say, at least agnostic to the .NET ecosystem. We actually also, like, I should have included it, but I somehow forgot, database integration with DataGrip. I think we will also look at that. But you see, this is like a really powerful architecture. We can just, it's like in a grocery store or toy store, and you just grab everything you want, more or less. Okay, but I think from here on I will do demo, and I will start here. So usually, I forgot saying this, but usually you can maybe put it in the chat if you like. Those of you who haven't had any contact with Rider or ReSharper before, that would be good to know. Just for my own for my own interest, let's say. With any answer that may come, I will still start simple with a couple of basic features, like we had with this already in one of the screenshots. So quite the easiest one. If you copy something from Stack Overflow or something, or from some other source, and you don't have namespaces installed yet, or no, you don't have namespaces imported yet with the using statement, then Rider will offer you to do that. Then we also have, and you see it up here. You see it up here. I don't have system collections. Or is it system link probably imported yet? But still, I can kind of access all the extension methods that are reachable from this certain type here, and the using directive will just be added for me. Also, and this is probably a little known feature. That's also why I like to include it. Let's say you copy something and you can't resolve it. Like in this case, you see, okay, I can create type. Okay, but test, I mean, this case is pretty clear because it comes from NUnit. But let's say you don't know where this type is actually coming from. What you can do is Alt-Enter and then find this type on NuGet. What will happen is that Rider will open the NuGet tool window, search for that type, and in the background, what happens is actually it's kind of consulting one of our web services, which indexes NuGet packages, and then it knows, okay, NUnit, you can install that here. Okay, successfully installed. Now we can go back, hit Alt-Enter, and it's imported the namespace. Okay, so other simple stuff. Again, it's Alt-Enter, and the reason I take one example, which is still, I mean, it's quite abstract, but my point is here. This is probably not very obvious if you first look at it, and this is something that still happens. I mean, not particular with checking for isLetter, but this is something that can happen if we just follow our train of thought and we just put it into code, and then it ends up as something that is more complex than it needs to be. This is an example. We kind of see the highlighting. In this case, it's just a suggestion because code is still okay, so no reason to issue a warning or an error. But I can simplify that, and then first the negation was eliminated outside and inside the Lambda, and then I can go further and also use a method group here. And I'm sure this is much clearer than what it used to be before. And so this is just a way how you can simplify your code to make it more readable. Then I would switch over to basic analysis because it still kind of fits the idea what I want to get across. I have a couple of C#8 features still here, but don't let that misguide you or something, because it's just an example. And newer language features like also the upcoming .NET 6 and C#10 features, I'm currently looking at writing a blog post about those and about the refactorings and quick fixes that Rider will include. And one of the biggest things, if you get to meet new language features, is Alt-Enter. And then, of course, you can, like in this case, turn this into an index from end expression. So that was an addition C#8. But what you also can do is go to the right and then choose to apply this particular quick fix in bulk. So for instance, you can choose to make it in the method, in the file, folder, project, or a solution, which is the most meaningful from my point of view. But yeah, depends on what you want to do. But in this case, if you actually do that, then your whole solution will be inspected, and everywhere it's possible, this index from end expression will be used, and you're, like, how to say, very easily transitioned your code to the new language features. Just to show this in bulk a couple more times, like in this case, I'm still using the using statement as opposed to using declaration. What I can do is just convert to using declaration, and here you see again I would just choose in method, and then it did two of the methods and converted to the using bar declaration. By the way, and this is something, this was moving to the wrong direction, unfortunately. Okay, interesting. Actually, I wanted to move it here, but anyway, I will show that later. Also with async enumerable, for instance, Rider and ReSharper will help you to kind of use them in the right manner. For instance, if you have a token passed and you're iterating over something that is an enumerable, they will make you aware you can pass the cancellation token. Same as with a method that takes it as a dedicated parameter. Here again, you can pass the cancellation token and stuff like that. So it makes transition to new language features pretty easy. I will still, because that's the shortcut that I wanted to show you. There's a shortcut if you do stuff like that, and you can see we have a bunch of warnings here, and let's say we want to fix them. What you can do is use the next, what is it called? Next issue. No, it's called next error. There's a bit of noise. Next error, but this actually includes also normal warnings. So I would say the naming is not the best here. I think I remember why that is, because solution-wide analysis can be configured to not show warnings. Anyway, with that shortcut, and shortcut is always shown here on the next to the action. We can navigate through our code. So you can see every time I move to the next issue, it actually shows what's happening there, at least most of the time. It's actually showing what's the issue here. And now I could go ahead and, for instance, you see I'm using nullable reference types in this case. Now ReSharper, now Rider offers me to convert the property type. I go next. This I don't want to address. Here I might choose to suppress the nullable warning because I know is valid checks for null, let's say, so I can do that. This one that is left is about localization and further and so on. So this makes it very easy. Another thing about, this is also great because it transitions to the next thing I want to mention. This is a method using simple if else to kind of tell you if the character that we passed is uppercase or not, or what it actually is. So let's say, what is it? Yeah, things like that. Okay, here, of course, we can also use that. Also good to know, because you don't want to walk around and remove the type everywhere manually, right? But anyway, let's get back to this particular one. In this case, you see I have a plugin installed, which is called Cognitive Complexity. Plugins you can install from the preference tool window. Here you can then just search for something, cognitive complexity. I have a bunch of things installed already. In my case, I will also show you about the heap allocation viewer and yeah, neon progress bar you will see every now and then, and probably also a bit of Azure. But back to the cognitive complexity plugin, that one adds a code vision item here, which right now says, okay, this is very complex. It's 166% of the threshold. And this is kind of to make you aware that something is quite complex and could deserve a refactoring. And in this case, this cognitive complexity plugin just makes you aware something is going on here. And you can also, okay, this is not a good example, but what we can do, let's do it, convert it to a switch expression. And this turns into that. And I guess, even though it expresses the same thing, I guess this is a bit easier to read instead of if else, and maybe you're missing some, if it was not immediately returning, maybe you're missing an else part of the else if statement and stuff like that. So this is a bit easier to parse, I would say. I actually have another example, and I will show it to you because this was one of the recent stuff that just happened to me. I don't know why syntax highlighting it. No. Okay, let's close active editor and go back. I don't know why I don't have. I will just close it and reopen it. And in the meantime, I will show you something else. New window. I don't know why syntax highlighting wasn't working. And also, yeah, I kind of have errors. I have it enabled that errors will be shown to me. You probably, as a normal user, you won't see that. But for me, it's good to know, okay, now something happened, something has thrown an error, then I can act upon that. But actually still, since we're restarting that, something that is quite important is, you see still while it's loading, this is quite responsive. I can actually also search for files in my solution, even though it's not yet fully loaded. So in case you have to restart, it's still right after booting up. It's already usable to some extent, let's say. And as soon as you see something like colors popping up, like now, then you know, okay, this is fully loaded, and now I also have the semantical model of my code that is known at that point. So we can, for instance, search for, okay, this is a bit slower than I thought. Come on. What was it? Target factory. Okay, maybe it was just not triggering. But yeah, then you can basically also search for symbols. But this here was a good example, because, and I will just quickly see if I can get to the last stage after I refactored that stuff. So I had this particular commit, and I can say revert selected changes, just to show you how it looked before. And this is telling me, again, very complex. And when I actually click that item here, what happens is that I see these little, I mean, this one is barely noticeable, I would say, at least in the dark theme. But what happens is that these little hints up here appear, and they tell you which part of your code is the most impactful in terms of complexity. And then you can make kind of educated decisions. What should be refactored? What should be extracted to a new method? And then your code looks much better, usually. Okay, let's go back. So we had cognitive complexity. Yeah, and again, this just simply prefers, for most part, prefers language shortcuts. Like, for instance, in this case, having an if. I mean, I'm totally not a fan to have just an if for that simple case. I would rather use the compound assignment operator. Same with checks and returns like this. Then I just convert it to a ternary operator, ternary conditional, and I'm done. And then actually now you see, before the threshold was at 3, now it's down to 0. Heap allocation viewer was another plugin that I mentioned on the list, and there's something I cannot show you because it takes a bit too much time. But there's something called dynamic program analysis, and if you turn that on, what happens is that whenever you execute your program, Rider will kind of take snapshots here and there. I'm not sure if it's continuously or how it works exactly, but it will track the execution of your program, and afterwards it will give you a list of, if there are any, list of issues where performance and memory issues are happening. For instance, if you call a method that frequently creates an array of a certain size, that Rider will notify you about that. Or if something like about, I don't exactly remember, but just try it on your code and you will see a couple of things. The thing I want to get back at is the heap allocation viewer, because this is not really something that you look at like, okay, this here, and what it adds are the orange underlines. I'll make this a bit larger for you. These underlinings. And this is something you don't actually look at like I have to act upon it. It's more like if you come to this method and you know it's a performance issue, then here are the allocations that are happening. Okay, like for instance, here we have an enumerator allocation. This is and you can actually also show that here. Delegate allocation, or here this is capture of the this reference. This here we have a closure, which also captures the string parameter. Here we have some boxing going on because that number will be converted to an object and stuff like that. So this is really just to understand your code a bit better and be aware where allocations are happening. Yeah, about and I prefer this example for several reasons. What we have here, and you see, usually this is so first I will explain. We have a method that receives a string, enumerable of strings, and we're iterating that 2 times, which is obviously not good. But what if you don't know what Rider wants to make you aware of, just for that particular case, or just imagine? What you can do is Alt-Enter, go to that inspection, move to the right, and then the last entry is why is Rider suggesting this. This doesn't exist for every inspection, I have to say, but for the most, and particularly for those that people are confused about. But in this case, you can say, why is Rider suggesting this? And this will open up your web browser, redirect to the appropriate help page, and then you can read up on this and why is this particular an issue. I also did something else here, and that is, since I was bitten by this several times already, what I did is move to the right, and then I configured the inspection severity. And I raised it, so usually it's a warning, I raised it to a warning, and I also made sure to pass this to the team shared layer to let also my colleagues who might be using this, okay, in this case, it's just the Rider playground, but to let them also benefit from the setting of severity that I set. And this is quite important, I think. So when you're working in a team, you really want to have the same view onto the code, that where issues are, etc. And maybe you also check those on CI, and you actually can check those on CI. So there's also a console application that creates a report similar to what you see here. But yeah, also beside code style, like, you know, I would probably not include this today, but code style, you can also configure every aspect, and Rider reads from editor config and all this stuff. So this is just something that you usually save into your repository and commit there. But back to the actual inspection here, of course, Alt-Enter fixes that, and you're done. Another case, this I could also actually raise to an error because I was bitten by that too. 2 times I use order by descending, but this is actually not correct because the second will override the previous invocation of order by. And this will just be, okay, I should not select something, but this will just turn it to the right one. Yeah, you know, something mostly obvious, I would say. I will get back a little to navigation. And navigation, let's start with something that might be, how to say, might be pretty the standard for everyone. So if you're using, or if you have tabs enabled, like I actually don't have tabs enabled. You don't see them. I have them hidden. But let's say, but still in the background there are some tabs, and I can move around the files that I've opened just with the Control Tab key, right? This is not the right way, and I think in ReSharper, yeah, in ReSharper also not, because what you do in ReSharper and Rider is to use the what is it called, recent files shortcut or action. Again, you see there's the shortcut is shown on the right hand side here next to the action, and let's invoke that, and I can actually also do it from the keyboard, and you see hands-free. So I immediately released also, and this stays open as opposed to the Control Tab. And further, what I can do, I can actually search here. So if you know, okay, had these files opened, and this is much smaller also compared to the normal navigation, which kind of considers your whole code base. But then you can say, okay, I want to switch back to nullable, let's say. Something else you can do is you can press that shortcut a second time, and now it will reduce the result set to the files that have been previously edited. Also, you can you can search for tool windows which are available. Those will also be considered. And if let's go back, so car, and you see this little icon here. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but I have no tooltip for that. But if you hit Shift Enter, then it will open up in a split view, basically. Okay, let's unsplit that. Something that I kind of forgot telling you. Maybe some of you were already taking notes, but you shouldn't. But there's, besides Alt Enter, there's a second shortcut which is quite important for Rider, and that is double shift, because this brings you to the search everywhere dialog. So from here, you can search. You see, first of all, we have some files, but you can also search for types, like even with initial letter search, and you could continue and say vb.move, for instance, and then you see both methods or the overloads more or less for the vehicle-based move method. You can also search for, like, let's use tabs as an example. This is the wrong one. Let's use something simpler. Theme is a good idea. So if you switch theme, then you can actually do this from right here. You just search for theme, and this is actually a preview, so I didn't commit. If I hit escape, then it goes back to the original state, right? Yeah, but this is quite important. The second important shortcut to remember, and also for actions in particular, you see I have a bunch here, different actions which have a shortcut assigned, but for go to class I don't have any. Let's say I use that action more frequently, then what you can do is here on the right hand side, press the shortcut to assign. So let's do this, and then you can quickly assign, and from then on, instead of searching for the action, just use the shortcut. Also, I think this is worth noting. This can be quite forgiving. Like, let's say, like in this case, console. You see, it's not exactly the first entry that we see, but still it's there. So we still can find console if you're quickly writing. I think that's definitely helpful, because otherwise, you're searching like crazy, and you thought, oh, but it's written like that, right? So it's kind of forgiving also. Let's go back. That was by mistake. What else do we have? Okay, of course, we can move around from a definition of a class or a type. We can go to base types. Let's go to base types. We can go to derived types. And this in particular is interesting because these are the derived types now. Vehicle base is in board because it's one of the immediate inheritors, or a car, plane, and train. They only transitively inherit from that type, from I vehicle. And also this is abstract. I guess this is self-explanatory. And I will take another example for this, because this is an example which where Rider really helped me. One of my projects, I'm working with syntax trees. This particular one uses Microsoft code analysis, so Roslyn. But I'm actually quite used to this also from the ReSharper SDK, which works similar. And when you deal with syntax trees, what often happens is that you receive something and you have to kind of cast it to something more specific. And the way because I don't always, I mean, one example or one approach would be you just debug and use the debugger to check what is the type of that particular node. But something that works much better is checking for derived types of a particular syntax node. And now, okay, we kind of have a large list which is unexplorable. But what I do then is just start typing to further reduce the result set. And in this case, the only reason why we have a couple of results is because I'm referencing the code analysis package in different versions. But then I could move there also and check. So decompilation is also included. In this case, I think it's not actually using decompilation because this exists as a this is even the auto-generated. But I think this one, this one uses source. What is it called? Source link, I think, to kind of get you the sources. But even if NuGet packages, they don't have the source, Rider will automatically decompile it, and you can actually also set breakpoints then. So this is something that definitely works. You have your NuGet package which doesn't have sources. Rider will decompile it. You can put a breakpoint there, and it will stop there, and you can see what's happening. Okay, back to navigation. Well, what else do we have? This is a fun one. There are two methods which can show you the extension methods and exposing APIs. But how are you supposed to know? Yeah, and the way how you can find out. So Rider is I think this is important. Rider is very much about discoverability. So even for me, and it's more or less my job knowing this IDE inside out, but I can honestly say I don't. I mean, not fully. But even every now and then I discover something new, and that is great. But it's also easy to discover once you need it. Because let's say we have the caret on our vehicle, then we can go to navigate to, and you have a list of all the navigation features that apply to this type. For instance, we already had base types and what was it, derived symbols. Now we can, for instance, check where is it, extension methods, and again here you can also filter extension methods. This will show us the list of extension methods. I guess this is something you can also move it here exactly. Let's go back here, extension methods here. This is something that could also be kind of spoiled, right? But something worth noticing here is that it starts with a more specific extension. So you see, this is typed on iVehicle. The rest is object and generic, so less meaningful for iVehicle, let's say. So something worth knowing, I guess. Another thing, let's go over to the car. There are two shortcuts. So there is I always forget these, I'm honest. It's called usages. Yeah. So there's find usages and there's show usages. I'm not exactly happy about the naming. I admit that. Find usages. This was actually not what I wanted. Let's go back. I think the example is with iVehicle. So let's do this again. Find usages. So this will open up the tool window down here. Okay, I personally don't like it. If you need it, everyone's choice, right? But let's use show usages. So this is just adding the shift. And what happens then is that usages open asynchronously. So if it was a bigger code base, then you would see items being added. This will open in place, and again here you can start searching. Yeah, like something, for instance, you want to deal with an interface, and you know you have seen it somewhere being used, and you only remember it was used with a car, let's say. Then you just search for car here, and then hopefully you find the spot that you remembered. At least that's the way how I remember things. Okay, what else? We have base types. Okay, type hierarchy. That's not a big deal actually. You can also see that. Favorites. Is there something I missed? These two we also had. Yeah, go to recent locations. That's also something I personally don't use it. But this works kind of like recent files, but you can also see you see the different files, and you can also see the place and the code around that you've visited. And again, you can also reduce to recently edited. Okay, so far for navigation. Let's head over to editing. So editing, with which should I start? This is also more or less a ReSharper feature, right? Like if I don't particularly like putting something into the for each statement, because it makes debugging a bit harder. So there's a shortcut. I mean, if you want to refactor stuff like that, okay, one thing you could do is use the mouse. A bit better is shift and arrow keys, but both of these are not great. There's an action, or there are two actions which are called extend selection, so Command W in my case, and shrink selection, Command Shift W. And when I use these, you can see that I'm kind of well, what's happening in the background is that the abstract syntax tree is used to syntactically select the next piece of code. So you see it kind of grows up to the method body, method, class, until the end for the whole file, which you can use Control A for. But also you can actually also go back from there, and it kind of unravels the stack of how you got there. But the point I want to show still here is you can then choose the full iteration variable and use a refactoring and say, okay, these are some kind of numbers. Okay, I have numbers already, so that doesn't make sense. But a better example may be, so what I usually do is here I say even numbers, then I go one step further. This is the sorted even numbers, and for this it's just something I did, so I will call it something. Yeah, things like that. And I guess, even though this is an abstract example, but I guess you all get the idea here to make things more debuggable and understandable. Even if you just read it, this is much easier to understand what's happening. The next thing is multi-caret. Oh yeah, multi-caret. That one I will show you in another solution. Quite recently, I had, and I will again use this just as an example. These two methods I didn't have. Okay, so I had these two methods. Single or default or error custom extension methods. And one was with a predicate and the other was not. Both had a message, and that is just to, if there's not a single or default element, then give a better exception message. That was the idea. And at some point I realized, okay, I also need those two for just single. So not single or default, but just single. The way I did it is copy these two and Control D for copy. Then go up here and you see, okay, now I have these methods 2 times. And the relevant part of that method is that single or default, right? So I select that, and then I use It's called add selection for next occurrence. And when I use this shortcut a couple of times, and I've selected all the relevant parts, and I can just type single again, or if I can type, or just remove the or default, and I'm done. That was the change. Okay. And I don't know why highlighting failed on me again. Okay, now. And this multi-caret is actually quite helpful. Just to give you a couple more examples. So sometimes I'm managing solution files by hand and not with the IDE, particularly if you don't have them open. Like some folks, they have multiple solution files for the different areas that they're working on, and if you're editing solution files manually, then usually what happens quite often is that people just remove this entry here, like project, and then just a project. But there are also some solution configurations, build configurations. So the way I do this is I just select here the GUID that is used, and then select occurrences. And then I could, for instance, remove the selection, and I won't do it, but delete line, and then everything is actually how it should be. Just as another example. I have quite a lot of examples for that actually, but let me see. Let me quickly. This was the wrong one. I closed one of my browsers that I didn't want to close. Anyway, let me quickly read what's happening in the. Solution filters. Yes. As far as I know, I don't personally use them, but solution filters should also work with Rider. I think. I hope. Stefan would probably know. Okay. What else can I show you? Let's go back here. Multi-caret. Yeah. So this is a big thing. Whenever, and I want to make this clear because this has helped me so many times. Whenever, I don't need the code for that actually. Whenever you're writing something that is not truly related, like for instance, the other day I was creating a couple of extension methods, and instead of HTTP request, I was using HTTP request message. And those are always the kind of times when I use the select occurrence, because even as opposed to replace all and stuff like that, I can actually go through and check if what I selected is actually something that I want to replace. So this is something that works much better. Just try to remember that. I'm sure you will run into a situation where this is helpful. Should we make a break? Maybe. I mean, Dan said we could make a break. Well, what do you think?
Are we feeling we're about halfway through, and does everyone feel like we can stop for a quick drink? If everyone,
I would take a drink. Yeah, I have tea.
Yeah, sounds good.
A little bit more tea, and I said it before already. So this is usually something I could talk for ages. I still remember one meetup that was in Berlin, where I had the whole evening basically, and we were talking for 3 hours, and that was about ReSharper. And I would say Rider comes with a lot more features, so there's that.
Yeah, let's have a 10-minute break then, so reconvene at 10 past. But feel free to unmute and then ask any questions during the break if you want as well. Although Matt's about to go for a drink. In fact, I might just do the same.
What do you mean Matt's about to go for a drink? You just
Matthias, not you.
Oh, okay. just insinuating that I was going to go and get. I mean, I am.
But I didn't think I needed to say that, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
I'm just happy I've got the Nyan Cat progress bar now. Didn't know that was a thing. I mean, if someone could just change it so it plays the tune as well, I mean, that would brilliant.
There are a couple of other cool ones. Like I think I remember there's also something for Zelda. And yeah, Hadouken, Mario, Pokemon. Yeah, cool stuff. I will make myself a tea. Be back.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be back in a sec.
Me too.
Okay, welcome to part 2. The next thing is something that I hopefully blow your mind with, because at least every now and then when I show this stuff, people are amazed. I will show you something that is called postfix templates. And again, in this case, I will use an abstract example. Let's say we have a method and we want to, let's rename this, get even numbers. So we receive an enumerable and return an enumerable. From here on, what we could do is use a live template to kind of for each, and you see it's creating a bunch of code and you can tap through it. Not the greatest way. Why? Because at the other meetup I was also saying already, I should coin a new term here. It's like thought-driven development, because basically, I guess your thought, the first thought that you have is, I want to do something with numbers. So you start with numbers. Afterwards, you kind of think, I should use an instance method. At least that is what the postfix templates are about. And you can call the for each method. So this is not an actual method on IEnumerable, but it's a template that transforms something that is in front of the template to the new thing that you want. And here, what you can see, I don't have these weirdly named placeholders being used, but instead it's right away, it's called number. I could continue, and what I want to do is check for it being even, right? So I wrote this Boolean expression, and I can type .if. It will convert to an if statement. And finally, I could do number.yield. Yeah. And in the end, it's mildly complex. So we convert it to link. So stuff like that you can do with postfix templates. Another example, and this is kind of a trick question or how to say, test question for you at home. You could try it in your mind right before I do it. The task is to create a string builder instance with the least amount of keystrokes. Okay, so, and I will right away show you how. Unfortunately, it's not the first entry in the list. So I have now I have 3 keystrokes, SB and string builder. Hit enter, and from here I'm using the bar template. So that is like I think 7 keystrokes, complete var. And what it does, it not only does it introduce a variable, but also you see it created the new core, the constructor core for that type. And usually I would go with a shorter name, but this was really not a lot of keystrokes. This is something that you could have actually saved yourself from. And also this is also important to know. You can also use these in between. So for instance, here that will introduce a new variable. It's a different way to introducing variables. Like before, we actually had the expand selection shortcut, which you could use to introduce variables. This is yet another way to do it. Speaking of live templates, there's also one, and I will quickly use something that was not originally intended for this thing to show. This one I used for Entity Framework, but anyway, let's say we have these properties and we want to inject them from the constructor. Okay, so one thing you can do is ctor p. That will grab all the properties through the constructor and assign them. Now, let's say I didn't actually have these properties, but I was creating the wait, let me just, is there also an implicit object creation variant to the var? Yeah, string builder.new also works. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. And maybe I forgot saying this. There should be a list of postfix templates somewhere. I kind of, after a while, I realized that this here is not it, unfortunately, because it only contains TypeScript, JavaScript, and SQL. Might it be somewhere else? Let me see. No, it's probably not. So usually there's an option page in ReSharper, but there's definitely also somewhere a web help that lists all of the different ones that exist. But let's say we kind of created this constructor, and you know, you can also create constructors like okay, let's remove that. You can also create constructors from usage. So for instance, organization.new. So let's use that actually. And I pass in an idea, and I pass an access token, and I pass in some bool, let's say. Now I can create a constructor from here and go through, name this ID. This is access token already. Okay, kind of inferred that, and that is some kind of flag. And now I have the constructor and can go here and say, okay, read field, no, but introduce get only auto property, yes. And then you can choose that for all unused parameters, and it will just create them and assign them in one go. Yeah, so that's how you can do it. Let's revert this real quick. That's it about postfix templates. You can also write your own templates actually, or you can actually check how some of the others are implemented. So live templates are the usual ones that like the for each template, for instance. By the way, postfix templates you cannot implement yourself because they usually know a bit of magic. Like for instance, they know they check if the expression you're invoking on them on is actually a collection or is actually a Boolean expression or all that. But live templates, the normal ones, you can create yourself inside here. Also file templates. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention it, but the C# 10 will introduce file scope namespaces, so you don't have these curly braces just for the sole purpose of defining a namespace. And for those, you can also easily convert using these bulk quick fixes. But also one interesting thing is that order templates, like this particular one, will automatically be converted to the file scoped to the file scoped result. Let's say what you end up with, and they just respect your setting that you set for your solution, whatever you prefer, and they just continue working. Okay, just a quick moment. Okay, what else? Statements. This is something simple. So let's say you're writing a method and it's called foobar, and you think, okay, I might pass a string, and again, not a boom but Boolean, and then you realize, okay, I want to add something else in the front, like an integer. Okay, this is something like the constructor we had. But now the question is, how do you add these curly braces, right? And I remember a time. So first of all, curly braces on the German keyboard, it's painful. I once created a live template, which was called BR, just to add these curly braces. So I no longer have it, but I did use it. But the much easier way, and this this kind of reminds me. I'm not sure if you had listened to the episode that Dan was recording with Kirill and Martin. But when Kirill said Kirill said when he first joined, he was doing something, and then someone took the keyboard away and said, "No, that's not the way how you do it." And that was kind of that moment for me, because what you do in these cases is the complete current statement shortcut. This will not only add these curly braces for you, like in this case, and put it into the body, but this will also work in places like this. And again, I will write something very stupid. And let's say you're at the front. Now you want to complete this to a statement. You can do so, and it will add the semicolon for you and put it on the next line. Same goes for stuff like that. And you want to have an actual body, you can do it. Yeah. From anywhere inside that. So I could also put it, I think I could also put it here. Yeah. Okay. Next thing. Now it's getting a bit more interesting, at least from my point of view, because the things that I want to show you. Let me quickly, I accidentally closed something in my browser. I just want to open it on my phone pretty quickly. Okay, there we go. Just to not forget some of the things where Rider has helped me in the past few days and weeks. I will give you one example. I was working with static web apps, which is a new thing in Blazor. Static web apps with Azure Functions backend. And I couldn't be further away from the whole Azure web and even Docker stack. So I barely touch these things, these technologies. However, I wanted to do something with it, and I will be honest, I wanted to use one of my projects for a conference and kind of, promote it and try to organize something around it. So it actually worked. I was invited. Then I had to get to the bottom of this and actually come up with some content. So and I actually did. But the thing I want to show you is how easy it was for me to tackle a problem that I had no idea of, or that several places I imagined without Rider would have been pretty difficult. So first off, we have where is Docker? Let me see. Maybe I turn it off, and the taskbar is not wide enough. Let me quickly see. I seem to have turned it off. Give me a second. So why Docker is running or is initializing, I will explain what happened. So Azure Static Web Apps, they are available with GitHub Actions and Azure Pipelines, but I didn't want to use the predefined tasks, for multiple reasons. And they make use of a Docker image. And let's see, maybe I'm searching for the wrong thing. Services, exactly, and then Docker. And Docker, is it connected already? Seems so. And they used an image to do this. So they kind of map stuff around, and I knew something wasn't working actually. Well, in the first instance, what I wanted to do is actually see what it's executing. So I can start this container, and oh no, this fails on me. There's one that actually keeps open. I hope at least. Oh damn it! App is invalid. There was one that kept open. Oh no. Embarrassing. Or should I maybe attach? No, I was really just starting, but I forgot which one it was. It might be that I deleted that, and that's the reason why it's it's stopping immediately. Yeah, probably. Okay. Anyway, I will quickly explain it in words. So something that you get with Docker support is the Files tab, and that will show the content of that particular container. What I did then is navigate to the file that was executed from the Docker image. And then I could download that file easily, like right-click and download as Scratch. These Scratch files will then end up here. Actually, also Sleepy Pascal, is it still around? No, it's not. Then this file is downloaded, and from here I can view it in Assembly Explorer, which will actually decompile it. And then I could, for instance, what I did here was checking for the actions options. I probably, legally, I shouldn't probably decompile here in the public, but yeah, I think this is still okay. But then you can see what kind of arguments can be passed. And because of that, I actually also found a bug in their conversion of 2 arguments. And I just posted that in their repository. And that wouldn't be possible if I hadn't this Docker support, for instance, because finding out how to map, volumes and all that stuff would have taken me a bit. Also, then downloading and this whole decompilation, all that. So that was pretty helpful. Another example I had. I kind of need to unlock my phone again just to remind myself. Yeah. Exactly. I already kind of mentioned it, and that was I got into contact with Azure Functions. And okay, I want to go back to the Solution Explorer. And for Azure Functions, and I'm actually also looking forward to what Matt mentioned about the version 4 and .NET 6, etc. Because one thing that was pretty painful was getting all the references in my functions to work. Just to show you quickly, something that you get with the Azure plugin is that you can easily run and debug your functions. You also get an Azure Explorer where you can use your subscription and then see what function apps you have installed and all that. If you have Azure Ride locally available, then you can, which is kind of an emulator. At least I didn't know it. Then you can also start that and then connect to the Azure Ride emulator. But something that I want to show is how easy it is to work with web APIs. And for that particular reason, I will just quickly start my function here. Let's start the function. And also I mentioned it initially, I have a Scratch, I'm using Scratch files for HTTP requests. So now my function has loaded, and this file was actually also created from here, because what I did was trigger build hello. I'll be honest, there's a bug. It actually used just the function name, although it should use the route from here, which if it's not, then it will default to that. But yeah, there was a bug. I have to report that. But from here, you can create your HTTP requests and then just also simply execute them. Like for instance, a GET request, and you can see the response. You also see, okay, this is actually capturing a cookie. If you don't want to capture a cookie, I think you can do something like this, exactly, no cookie jar, as a comment before. And first of all, this is also pretty cool. You can compare 2 responses with each other. So these 2 are identical, but if they weren't, you could compare them. But something that is much cooler is you can actually also commit these HTTP requests inside your repository. And like, for instance, when I work with the Slack client, what I have is the Slack HTTP file here. I have a couple of common requests that I that I also have to execute more often to test things and all that. But there's something special about it. So first of all, this looks simple, post to that endpoint. And yeah, can you use variables in these requests? That's exactly what I want to show. So first of all, for non-sensitive things, you always reference variables with these double curly braces. You can actually also navigate there. So for instance, here, this will navigate to the env JSON file, which is sitting just next to it. And you can kind of change it or whatever. But then you also have these sensitive data. In this case, the access token I can show you because actually it's still working. But I trust you. And I will reset afterwards. No, but anyway, from here, then you can just pick the environment, how you want to execute it. Like in this case, Slack. And you see response was okay because it has taken, and actually I'm not sure if you see that. So I got this message now from Slack here, which just appeared because I was executing the HTTP request. So this is really cool stuff. If you have multiple in one file, you just separate them with these comments here. And this is really helpful. And I have these HTTP requests for a bunch of services, like also here for AppWare, Azure pipelines, etc. Everything that I need. And then at some point, I just convert it to HTTP to use it in my HTTP client. So pretty cool stuff. Can you use the output from one request to feed vars into the next? Yes, I personally, at least I think so. I know there's something how you can capture the output of one request and yeah, basically capture it. I never personally needed it, but it's definitely in the web help. If you look for it, maybe it's also in the examples with tests. No, that's probably not it. Post. No, there is something how you can capture and redirect and all that. Yeah, but okay, I don't know offhand, but it exists. And if you have any questions afterwards, just ping me. I can also take a look with you. Okay, HTTP requests, yeah, and functions. So that is really helpful in a number of scenarios. Also, not to miss that, I mentioned initially that Rider has DataGrip integrated. And the magic of DataGrip is really if you write something like a SQL statement, for instance, and you want to put a SQL command into this string right here. So what you can do is hit Alt-Enter and then mark as injected language and choose, well, in this case, I want to use SQL. There it is, SQL. Now it's a SQL statement, and I can type SQL here. So select star from, so I have my services, let's say, for instance, and you see, even if I mistype something, this will know. You can even navigate from here. So this is the DDL, I think, right? The definition. I don't actually work with databases that often. I think you maybe can tell. But if no, this is not here. There. This is the, I would say, main entry point for DataGrip. So you have the overview over your tables and database structure. You can walk up there and, for instance, browse what's in there. Okay, this takes a moment. It's just one entry, really. Okay, I don't know. It's my connection. or something, or Azure is down like Facebook was. Anyway, so usually you can see the entries. You can also modify them, and then usually if you change something in a table, then you can submit all the changes at once. And you can also choose to now finally you can also choose to do this in a transactional way. Like I can't really say. The other day I was watching a Datagrip video with just the basics. It was taking 1 hour, so I cannot put this into 5 minutes like here. But really, believe me, this is so powerful. Like you can also, I didn't know until then, you can also, for instance, with the star, which is not exactly the best way, but you can actually expand the column list. So now it is taking all the columns from there. You can do joins also with I actually don't know how to write this. And wait, I think just one second. Can you still hear me? Because my headphones just died.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's still the better microphone. Let me quickly check. Real estate. Okay, yeah, it is.
It sounds the same to me.
Okay, I will put them to load meanwhile. Okay, and you can do joins and all that fancy stuff. You know, I barely remember how this is actually done, but you see in most cases this is done for me, and I actually don't even need to remember. So pretty cool stuff, if you ask me. And these language injections, with a new version, you can even put that as attributes onto methods. So, for instance, if you have a method that receives an HTML string or XML, you can attribute that, and it will automatically know. But for now, what you still in that case can do is mark as let's use regular expression. That's actually a much better example. So for instance, you know, I never remember the character classes. This is the way how you do it. So for instance, you can search for, can you actually search? I'm not sure. No, you can't search. In this one, you can't search because it will just take it as input. Yes, please. You can choose one of the, or you at least have the descriptions there. And okay, this was one too much, I think. And then you have also basic highlighting. Is it still regular expression? Yeah, no, it was. It lost it, and all that stuff. Yeah, end of string, for instance. I always confuse those two as well. What is the end of string? What is the start time? Because I'm still sure at some point there was another regex flavor which used it in a different way, but could also be me who's just weird. So what else? Database browsing. I think I had most of it. VCS is the one big topic I think that's left. Let me just quickly go through that list. I have pull requests since Matt mentioned it. You know, Hacktoberfest. So the pull requests tab is also pretty cool. I mostly look at it as a maintainer. To be honest, I'm not sure if you can actually create. If you can also create. Yeah, you can also create a pull request. So that's cool. But the real power comes as a maintainer because you can then check out and make comments here and all that. So this is really cool. Hacktoberfest. What else? Let me quickly see. This is something, well, I won't actually execute it, but run configurations is also a godsend. So you can have multiple run configurations for different things. Like for instance, we had for Azure Functions, and this will run the whole project. This will just run a single function. I also have some custom some some run configurations for normal .NET projects, like here. Those are all executables. These are coming from a custom plugin. And one thing that is pretty interesting is the ability to run compound run configurations. Like in this case, CI all means that it will run all of these run configurations. I'm not sure if it's simultaneously. I think there's a setting for that, but don't pin me on that. But you can put them together and execute them in one go. You can also, what else can you do? Like where is it? Like in this case, you can see, say before lunch, execute another one. So that way you can actually chain them. They will make you aware of issues that might exist. Like in this case, I don't have that SDK anymore. Code completion. What else? Unfortunately, this is something I really don't like, but it will remove the part afterwards for some reason. So let's cancel on that. You can also save these run configurations as project files, which are then versioned in your repository. So also your team colleagues can use them, which is really helpful because you just write these run config once, and you want others to benefit from them as well, right? So far for run configuration, and you see there's not just normal run configurations, but there's also the HTTP requests that we had. I think it will also add test runs. It will keep an amount of 5 temporary run configurations, which are a little bit, how to say, not blurred, but less contrast. I'm no color expert. Anyway, so this is some cool stuff that you can do, and you can add them manually, of course. And I can say, you could check out the new EAP, and if you find a magic flag in the registry, you could take a view at the new toolbar that will hopefully come with the next 21.3 release. I think that's something I can say because it just takes a bit of Easter egg searching. Okay. Anyway, VCS I was saying, right? But let me first check if there was something else. I'm not sure if some of you are actually developing normal web apps. The endpoints tool window is pretty cool. I haven't personally used it, but it will take the Swagger generated stuff. Excuse me, I don't know this stuff, but it will take the Swagger output and create a nice UI for you to test the endpoints and all that thing. Okay, unit testing. What can I say? It's straightforward. I won't dig into that. I think some things of these are self-explanatory. VCS might be not. That's the reason why I will use VCS now. And for VCS, let's say I want to commit. And currently, in this solution, I actually have multiple repositories available. That is why if I say group by repository, it will show these different repositories for me. So there's one Nuke main repository. Down here, you see the branch. And then there's also some external repositories. I just have them in one solution for convenience. And then you can open these and check what modifications do we have there. You can also group by directory, if that makes it easier. The one thing I want to show you is I have, let's just say I have this file here, and I put a secret in here. Yeah, it doesn't really matter where it is, but this is secret. Yeah, this is something I don't want to accident. I mean, sometimes we just do this for convenience reasons. You know, might not want to put it into an environment variable, which might be even more likely that I forget to revert it or put it somewhere else and stuff like that. Okay, I will take some comment about continuous testing. Maybe I will take a look. But back to secrets. I want to make sure that this is not committed to source control, right? And the best way, and this comes from the community, it was funny. Again, this is something that I didn't know before. It just happened to be something that I learned because someone else was using it that way. What we can do is create a new change list, which we call secret or secrets. And then we can move the change over there. We can use drag and drop here, or we can also, if we're in that file, we can click right here and say move it to secrets. And the big benefit that these change lists have, and let me quickly go back to remove the directory, is when I want to commit this and that won't work because Rider knows two change lists cannot be committed together. There's something wrong, fix it. Yeah. So we would that kind of prevents you or me sometimes also when I use it to accidentally commit secrets to the repository. Usually these change logs, I mean that's the main thing, at least as far as I'm concerned, for what they were intended, is to make it easier for you to organize your changes into something committable. Because whenever you create a new change list, you can put a comment here, and that will be used also when you try to commit from there. Okay, so these are just to kind of organize your changes and then decide, do I want to commit or maybe not. Also inside here, pretty helpful. You have code completion, of course, for stuff like the branch and different files. I wish there was, or previous messages that you used. I wish there was also something for actual symbols that I worked with. I remember at my old company, one of my team colleagues, he implemented that for Git extensions, which was pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, that's something unfortunately Rider doesn't have. And by the way, this is as far as I know, at least the branch is something that the extension Git Toolbox comes with. So this is this one right here, and Git Toolbox also adds this little thing here. So after in the current line, it will show when the last change was and what it was about. So this was 4 years ago. Man, time runs. Okay. More importantly about VCS, yeah, I get it, is, well, first of all, let's go back. So one thing I forgot here. I think this is the standard, and you see, particularly when I do presentations, it's kind of this doesn't work. Then I can just switch to unified viewer and have them below each other, which works much better. But also, more importantly, there's the VCS tool window, and that is really helpful. So first of all, again, like I said, I have multiple repositories here. Those will be shown on the left-hand side. So this is one repository then, for instance, and this is one. But usually I have that collapsed a bit. You can also browse branches from here and search for them. You can also, and this is pretty cool. You can see if you're working with multiple branches, you can see which branch has outgoing changes, as well as if you have configured to auto fetch, which I think I have. But then it will also show an arrow for when there are incoming changes, which is pretty cool. So, and Stefan says, I just want to read it. Current current line git blame. Oh wow, I've definitely underappreciated all the Rider plugins so far. Yeah, so there are quite some gems out there. I definitely have to say, and it's really cool what people have come up with. Back to the VCS stuff. So here, okay, this is a feature branch. You can see I have a talent for meaningful commit messages. But anyway, if I wanted to change that, so you don't necessarily have to git rebase or something. If it's just an edit commit message, you can also do just that, and I will, in this case, just fix the uppercase, and that will do. Okay, now I have to force push. But also, of course, and I use this quite frequently, interactive rebase, and then you can go here and let me make this a bit smaller. Then you can choose to drop, and I use shortcuts for that, right? Drop, fix, or you can say this is a fix up for the other one, and this should be reworded. Then you reword inline. Oh yeah, let's make it lowercase again. No, actually, let's cancel. But this is how you can rebase, discard. Also, I have to say, this search is, and okay, this repository is not the biggest, to be honest with you, but this search is really powerful because it's really, really fast. So even with the ReSharper repository at JetBrains, which is quite huge. I mean, last time I checked, I believe it was around 500,000 commits, and you can imagine it's also quite big. But this works similarly fast inside that repository because git log is kind of cached or indexed in some way, which makes it pretty fast. Also, like, for instance, imagine I search for help and the result set would be a bit bigger. But you know, I'm looking for a commit that contains help, but which also happened to be in the build directory, for instance. Then you can do this here from paths. Then choose the path that you want to look for, and then you see one single result, and you see this was actually happening or affecting the build directory, and then we can let's reset. Wasn't there a reset button for the index? Maybe it's hidden somewhere. Anyway, I'll just do all from here. You can actually also search for commits from the Alt Enter menu. No, from the Shift menu. Reset filter, yeah. So this will be shown here and here as well. Help text, for instance, or what else? Executable. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, just at your fingertips, basically. What else should you know about it? That's very important. The VCS operations window. Something similar, by the way, exists for, there's a NuGet quick list, which can restore, force restore. Force restore, by the way, is sometimes if you have issues with references in your project, this can be quite helpful because offhand, I can't really tell you when exactly restores are happening. You can configure that in a number of places. But if you have issues with references, NuGet force restore is something worth trying. There's also one for testing quick list. So from here you can run unit tests, run the whole solution, remove the selected tests, and all that stuff. Pretty helpful as well. Okay, there's a question. Force restore, is that about package downgrade errors and stuff? I'm not sure. I'm not sure either. What it does is really making sure that everything is latest, and it will override the stuff that is in the OBJ folder, and make sure that it kind of reapplies everything from the ground up and not something in between. It's just try it, I would say. Next time you have issues, just try it. Okay, but back to VCS operations tool, quick list. So from here, again, I can search by typing. I can search, for instance, for, okay, most of that stuff you see anyway. The way I use it is opening that one. And for me, it's VCS operations, Control V. Then I hit the 7 because 7 stands for branches. So 7. Then I type new, create a new branch. Or I go here and type the branch name that I want to check out. Like in this case, if I just hit enter, then it will check out the develop branch that I have locally. I can also, I can do convenient stuff like marking things as favorites, for instance. Now you can also because I need to force push. Now you can actually also see that I have incoming and outgoing commits for my current branch. You can rebase from here. So, okay, this is the repositories that I mentioned, because I have not just a single one, but multiple. Usually, if you only have a single one, then you would only see this dialog from down here, I suppose, at least. But then we could say we want to rebase the current onto the selected, for instance, and then just be done with it, or delete, all that stuff that you usually do with branches and tags and all that. Yeah, speaking of tags, I mean, this is also kind of obvious, maybe tagging, new tag, be done with it. What else do I use quite frequently? Drop commit sometimes, yeah. So then you don't need to interactive rebase and do that manually. And you can also compare with other revisions, of course, like let me see, show repository at revision. That is pretty cool, because what this does is not actually checking it out, but it just allows you to browse that particular revision at that certain point. Okay, so then you can, if you know in this particular revision it was working, let's see what is the status of the source, and then you just go there. And I'm not actually sure if you can, how you navigate in this case. I think this will operate on your currently checked out or on your working copy. But anyway, I guess it's good to know that this stuff works, or can work the way I just said. Yeah, you can also search for hashes, of course. Anything I missed here? Cherry pick? No. Oh yeah, you can actually also open on GitHub. And before I forget this, we also had the NuGet tool window, right? And NuGet tool window, also for this case, it will show you all the installed packages. And try to do Alt-Enter here. This is something also that is pretty new. Okay, now I get a huge lag, apparently. Okay, yeah, this takes more than I would like it to. It's good to know that it's just near the end when. Oh my God. It was all working so nicely until now. So usually that doesn't happen. I can tell you. I hope you believe me. But this, yeah, I don't know. It's not very responsive right now. What I wanted to show you is that you can hit Alt-Enter right here. Will it work or won't it? I actually pressed it already. But yeah, it's busy. Let's close it. Okay, give me a second. Okay, let's do the same here. NuGet. This doesn't have so many packages, but NuGet, and try to hit Alt Enter here. So then you can copy the package name, for instance. I need that rather frequently. You can also view the package in the Assembly Explorer just to see what's inside. By the way, I was so happy when I'm not sure if you've seen it, but no, this is not. Yeah, I have full screen. NuGet.org. And let's look for a package. I will use my package. So you can go here, for instance, then go to the package. This doesn't have to do anything with Rider, but it's still, I will show you, you can open a NuGet package explorer, which is something that the UNO team came up with. And that will use Blazor WebAssembly to kind of download the package first. And then maybe I should have taken one that is smaller. Oh, it was actually pretty fast. And that also works on OS X and Linux, because now you can just browse here and see what's inside and all that stuff. So that's pretty handy. And yeah, but from Rider, let's say what you can do is inspect them in the Assembly Explorer, just here. What's kind of missing for me is a better view onto the metadata, but still you have the kind of what is it called, the new spec file, or roughly, because this would miss the content, but similar like that. Okay, I would say I'm finished. I can check if I can also run some tests. This repository is this is my test repository, so here I can definitely do it. But let's say this is a good one. This test right here, it's not a test. Fact. This fact right here can fail. It actually fails in 50% currently, I think. Or is it? No, it's not, because I have to. But let's increase that number for a bit. And now let's say to a certain percent, this test will fail. And let's say this is a flaky test that runs on CI, and you want to kind of provoke that it fails locally. So what you can do is using the test quick list. And this actually also has a shortcut. I should remember that. Quick list. And search for until. Run until failure, right? Or debug until failure. I would do just run, because now it will restart the test until it actually failed. And let's see if that's happening. How good is random actually? Or maybe I should use the random number generator from the cryptography namespace, where at some point this will fail. Yeah, like now. Then you might have also log entries to further diagnose the issue and stuff like that. What else about testing? Yeah, this is the continuous testing that Stefan was mentioning. So let's see. Let me see where it is, because I personally don't use continuous testing, to be honest. So where is it? Yeah.
It's in the cog there. In your pane, you've got the cog window.
Here, right?
So to the right of it, one to the right of it. If you click away from that one, it's one to the right of the cog.
Yeah, there. Yeah. Run all tests. So you can decide if you want to run all the tests or only the new and outdated ones and stuff like that. And you can also define if you want to trigger it with either the build command or save. And what happens then? So usually, if I use it, then probably on save. So let's save this setting. And now I can run new and outdated. Let's use this one. Continuous. I haven't seen that dialog for ages. Do not show again, just to see it the next time maybe. Oh, don't I have that installed? No, it should work actually. Let me see. Ah, yeah, it's there. I don't know what was shown, and I don't want to spend too much time reading.
If you do cover all tests instead of run all tests, I think that will then work.
Cover all tests instead of run.
So in that drop down you did run all tests, but I think if you do cover all tests, which is what I normally do.
Okay. But from here on, I mean, I probably could have also used the other one, but from here on, I think this should still work. Like test 1, for instance, uses the random thrower. And if I go there and change something, like make this a 3, then you can see .cover knows that this particular test is affected by this class, by this random thrower, and will re-execute. And same goes, by the way, for the other one. If I navigate there, people printer, change something here. Let's just insert a blank line, save. Then it will only rerun this one affected test. Yeah. So that's the way how you use it. And to the right, this can be helpful to see if you have a larger code base, of course, to see where are the not bottlenecks, but places that need improvement, which lines are not covered and all that stuff. And then, of course, you also see this on the left-hand side of the bar. This one is actually uncovered. Actually, also says that. Here, if that exception would have been thrown, you would see it on the left-hand side shown in red. And you can also search from here. So .cover actually is also its separate product. So there's also a lot to learn about it. But hopefully it is intuitive. I would say so. But if you have questions for that, just ask or ping me afterwards. Okay, from here you can also do basic stuff like grouping and all that. Yeah, I think. One thing exactly that is more about working with the debugger. What I want to show you, and that is, for instance, let's see. Oh yeah, run session. Let's stop the continuous session for a moment. Let's make it off. So I have, where do I want to start? Let me think. Oh yeah, let's first start with this. Okay, I still want to have the tests down there, just to have, just to start the debugger. And if there are any questions, do let me know. Okay, so a while ago, or how do I start here? This is a statement that is going to be executed next, right? And you see there are a couple of chords nested, and naturally you could say, okay, where do you actually want to go? If I want to go into print people, then I would need to step into, step out, step into, step out, step into a couple of times, just to, because it would first step into get people. A while ago, we introduced the smart step into action, but nowadays even the step into has the defaults to the smart step into. So what happens is once you click that, you can select, or once you trigger it through the keyboard, you can select into which of the next expressions you want to step into. And if I want to go to print people, so be it. Use print people and be there. It works similarly with, but do I have one? I think yes. So let's put something here, and I check for For now, it doesn't make sense, but I will use it anyways. If you put a breakpoint there, and you know there are a couple of places where the breakpoint could actually be. Do you want to stop inside the lambda? Do you want to stop for the whole statement, which is the default, or which sits on the top? So this is also quite helpful there. One interesting thing, and I guess it really depends what kind of code base you're working with, but this is something big for Unity developers, for instance. I'm calling print people 2 times here. Once I call it with the get people method, and once I just pass a custom array. So let's say I want to debug the print person to statement body. I want to debug the print person method, but only after for the second call of print people, which ultimately calls print person. Okay, the way you can do this is one way would be using conditions, for instance, but in this case there isn't really, at least as far as I can see, there isn't really a way to use a condition for that. The more appropriate way to do this, and also smart way, is you have both of these breakpoints. For the first you so this is the one where we say only after this one has passed we want to break on this breakpoint. So because we don't really want to stop here, we can remove the suspend execution checkbox from there. So now it turns yellow. And for the second, we can define disable this particular breakpoint until another breakpoint is hit. And now you see it. It's even there in yellow. This is a bit awkward, I'll be honest, because usually you should see a preview of the selected breakpoint, but unfortunately the drop down hides the preview. So you can, I don't know, maybe make it a bit bigger and then scroll. But this is not the greatest experience, I have to say. I hope someone fixes that sooner or later. But anyway, we can make it a dependent breakpoint on this one. And now if I execute that again, and by the way, last time I debugged the test, right? And I can also, okay, I will show you something. Right now, I don't remember what the action is called to rerun the last test session run. What you can do if you forget what an action is called, you can go to the key map, go here, and then just hit the shortcut, and then you can see previous repeat previous run. That's what I was looking for. So let's repeat the previous run, which should be debugging this particular test. And then my assumption, or I hope, that we end up with Khalid right away at this breakpoint. Yeah. And you can also see it's showing these values inline. If it's JSON, you can actually view the JSON. It's properly formatted and all that. Here you can add watches. And this is also particularly cool because let's say using the string from here, right? And string has the length property. But let's say I type count just because, I mean, with string, people might actually use length. Let's say it's an array instead of a list. Then you might write count, but actually you should write length. But the real magic here is that once you complete, Rider actually turns this into length because it knows you probably are looking for length. It's kind of a kind of a weird situation that we have both of these names. But anyway, it will just convert it for you, and just to make the code run as you intended to. This, by the way, also works inside here. So when you define conditions here, I would just use a inline string, but you also have code completion here. And that makes it really easy to write conditions. What else? This is pretty cool because here you can actually, I don't know where it is. You can hide. Is it in the right hand? Yeah, in the context menu, hide frames from libraries, so to see only the code that affects you. Which, yeah, I guess it removes a bit of noise that is unnecessary in some situations. And of course, you can also, I mean, I don't actually remember what this concept is like in Visual Studio. Well, where's my tool window was on the other screen. Exceptions are also breakpoints. I mean, this is like a fundamental concept. So for these, you can also define if they should be removed once hit, which is kind of a nice thing, I think. You can also add custom ones like CLR exceptions, then search for a particular type like argument out of range. Let's do this again. And then use arrow keys and, just select it with space and stuff like that. And for the debugger also, where is it? I think it's somewhere else. May there be settings somewhere? Give me a second. Yeah, no. First of all, for exceptions, you can also define if it should only break for exceptions from your own user code, so to say. And also it makes sense for every one of you to, if you use the debugger, go into the settings and make yourself familiar with it and see what it provides. Like, for instance, recently I had to increase evaluation time of properties and also, what is it? Let me see. If you I have to kind of restart that maybe to show you. I'll make a breakpoint right there. And then, what was the shortcut? Okay, it's probably, or let's stop here. This is a good place. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Okay, here. If you are somewhere, then you can also, again, I've shown you the expand selection thing earlier. This is something that you can use here too, because you can expand and you see, okay, the string is Tim, length is 3. Is it smaller than 4? The tooltip doesn't show. Usually it should show. I don't know why not. Okay. I don't actually know why. Maybe I've turned it off. So usually it should show, yeah, but maybe actually I turn it off. So for these cases, it's definitely worth checking the debugger settings, because what it should be is show value tooltip. I think this is it. Also show values in line. That's on by default. And other settings that I recommend checking on a more frequent basis is definitely plugins. Code style, I mentioned this previously already. Definitely worth checking these into a team shared .settings file. And otherwise, you can for various things, you can just use the search, like type ins, for instance, and see what it does provide, and it's really discoverable, I would say. Okay, I talked for like 2 hours now, roughly. I would say some of you may also be tired already. Definitely, I want to say thanks again for having me. Wait, I even have a closing slide. So thanks for watching. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your question. For your questions. If you do have some other questions sooner or later, definitely feel free to reach out to me. mail or Twitter, whatever works for you. And I hope you learned something. I know I would, if there's anyone among you who hasn't learned anything, definitely also ping me, because then I will have a private session with you and just go through everything that I still know and make sure that I find something, which would also be good for one of the next sessions, because then I know something that is less likely people know. But yeah, thanks. And if you have any questions, still feel free to ask.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that. That was it's so good having a talk on my favorite IDE. It's kind of bad timing though, really, because I don't know whether you saw on Twitter this week, for a bit of research for an upcoming podcast episode, I'm making myself spend the entire week in Visual Studio without Rider or ReSharper. And I've got to be honest, just between you, me, and the people in the meeting room, it's painful. It's painful. It's really painful. So just the timing of having all these awesome tips you're giving and me having to wait till next week to try them all, it's quite painful. I might actually lose my willpower and do a bit of Rider tomorrow, I think.
But yeah. I mean, for one thing I think is cool about Rider is that it's out of one. There's an idiom in German, but I don't know if it actually works in English. But it's built from one single company, let's say. In Visual Studio, I mean, this is not really something any one of the two of us can solve, but it's really two companies putting in features which don't necessarily have to work with each other, right? And Rider is more like from, very, very consistent and in itself, and we have all the opportunities also to do these kind of interactions between data grip, for instance, and the ReSharper backend, maybe even. But yeah, great to hear. I mean, I'll be honest as well. Every time I do write blog posts around ReSharper, that's also a bit of a pain because I kind of have to go back. I mean, it was no pain back then, certainly. But now there's some minor things about muscle memory and all that make it a bit more difficult to work. But I definitely made this choice also deliberately or do you say deliberately? Intentionally, to go to Rider, and yeah, also don't want to go back actually.
Well, I'm finding just things like, so one thing with Rider is it's very in your face with, and in a good way, I mean, if there's something that's not right with the squigglies, it's like a recommendation. So like missing, for example, in Visual Studio, I'm finding that if I've got a method that's just not used, it doesn't tell me. It just says that your code quality is fine. And so what I tend to see is that if I'm looking at a code base, as being a consultant, I see lots of different code bases. If I'm looking at a code base and the developers are Visual Studio users, it's just full of redundant code or things that could be improved. And it's because the Visual Studio users just don't see them. Mm-hmm. Because it just doesn't tell you that you've got to start installing Roslyn analyzers or customizing editor config for it to actually highlight these things. But yeah, it's kind of I'm a big fan. So thank you for all your work with this.
Yeah, and not only my work, but I will definitely forward that. But one cool thing, I mean, you could kind of argue that this is some nitpicking maybe, but let's say we have some namespace which is not used, and this is the main thing I use bulk quick fixes for, because whenever at some point whenever I see an unused using directive, what I do is remove unused directives, go here, and then fix for the whole solution. Yeah, because this is usually something that goes out of sight. I mean, because the default is those are hidden, but at some point still I want to clean up all the unused using namespaces just to have, my peace with God and And this also, by the way, since I'm preparing the next blog post for C#10, so block scope name. No, it was not about block scope namespaces, but global usings is a thing that will come in the next version. I see I could even upgrade my version here. I'm not sure if it would be working. But global usings, and those are considered as well. So when your whole code base has no usage of one of the global usings, it will tell you that it's unused, and that's definitely cool, because why have it there if it's not used, right?
Yeah, definitely. I tend to have, the errors and warnings window.
Yeah.
I always have that in just below the solution. So basically, every time I'm doing code, I'm making sure this is always empty. So that's showing things like the unused using statements and various other things. So I always before I commit any code, that's got to be empty.
Even including warnings?
Yeah, warnings as well, because all the warnings are things that aren't used. So just like you've got no warnings here.
Do you remember that? That's quite a while ago, and it was still in ReSharper, if I'm not mistaken. But do you remember that ReSharper once had this window and was only showing errors?
I can't remember, actually. To be honest, because I've used Rider for quite a while now, I've completely forgotten what's in ReSharper.
That was one of the first features that I implemented, because first it was only available for errors, so it was really only showing errors, and then I added this, but it was still in ReSharper, and I added this button to also include warnings in there, and that was only because my previous team, so the company I worked last, and we kind of agreed that this would be helpful, and that was one of the first things I did at JetBrains. Showing warnings here as well. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Well, my first step when I'm doing a PR review is check out the feature branch, open up this tab, and see if there's any errors and things.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my default first thing with a PR review.
I wish I could also say for my project that I have no warnings, but I actually do. I don't have solution-wide analysis enabled. But at least I have no errors, I can say.
That's always a good sign.
Confidentially.
Yeah, one thing I need to do with this more is the Git integration, because I use Smart Git, which is an external Git GUI, but I should, especially seeing you use Smart Git and use Git integration here, I should really just spend a bit of time just using that and get used to it, because it does look quite powerful.
Mm-hmm. I was when I was still on Windows, and yeah, for me it also took a while getting into Rider, to be completely honest. I mean, I kind of had to, because it was my job, but it was a bit reluctantly, because at that time I still remember I was quite happy with Git extensions, but now being, let's say, being a master of the VCS integration inside Rider, this feels very natural, and you can all do. I mean, even Git extensions probably since then also improved and all. But again, this is about being integrated into a single place also, right? Which Git extensions couldn't compete with. I still use it on Windows for certain things, particularly when still having to work with ReSharper. But yeah, I can really say there's not for VCS, there's not a single thing that I need to do with Git that I can't do here. I can reach pretty much everything from here.
Lots of interest. Where does it store you said about, what's it called? Not playlists, what they call change lists. Where does it store that information? Presumably it's nothing to do with Git at all. It's not storing any Git metadata. Is it a Rider thing?
Yeah, it is. I would assume, I can not say for sure, but I would assume it is somewhere. No, not here, but here. Data sources, run configurations. So shelves are definitely here. and change lists, they might be in one of the XMLs right here. So they could be here, maybe. No, doesn't look like it. But I'm pretty sure they must be saved somewhere here, somewhere around here, in the IDEA folder. Some of this, some parts of the IDEA folder are actually committed, like I mentioned with the run configurations. So those that you actually commit. Some other parts you don't. Change lists are probably one of them. By the way, one thing that I didn't mention is, and that's actually a huge thing, is show local history. Because what this does is, even if you're not committing, it will save the changes that you've been doing, like this secrets, for instance. Here it was added. Sometime later it might have been removed. Maybe I think I removed it. But you can. I didn't click on the file. I'm stupid. But you can go back in time, and even if you haven't committed, you can see what changes have been applied. This is not it. Okay, maybe I did something wrong. But like in this case, this is quite helpful just to kind of motivate it. And this has happened to me actually, like an accidental Git reset. Yeah, and things are lost, you would think. But with local history, you can kind of revert them because it tracks the changes. Or another thing is you implement something, a fix, or you think it's a fix, then you decide, okay, it's not a fix, it's stupid what I did. Then you delete everything, undo everything, and then you overwrite the undo stack, because afterwards you can't, redo from the point when you actually started typing again. And this also helps to bring back those changes, and basically just not to miss them, and just restore them. There's one, if you run into such situations and you don't want to actually commit, but you still want to have some kind of restore point, then in this case also the VCS operations pop-up is helpful, because you can put a label on it. You can say this is draft 1 without actually committing, but still have the possibility locally to restore it, if that makes sense.
Does Rider have so if you've got a git merge conflict, so you've got like a three-way diff, does it have that kind of diff tool?
There's a diff tool. There is one also. I'm kind of not great at creating examples for git merge scenarios, so I will explain briefly in just plain English. One thing that it does is, when you have merge conflicts, is in the merge window you will see the conflicts. For some of these you can use there's a magic wand button, and that will that sounds a bit weird, but still, yes, it does some magic. But what it does is, in the cases where it knows how to resolve these these conflicts, and then for the rest you just go through. And one great thing about these is also, if you're not sure, then usually what I do is to take changes from left and right, and then navigate to the place where I put both of them and resolve them manually. And by the way, for this particular case, it's also quite cool that if you are inside here, let's say I'm inside here and I have the side-by-side viewer, then still in this case you have code completion here. So you can, even here in the diff view, you can further type and stuff like that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is also available if you merge. So even if you're inside the merge window, it has one revision, it tries to merge the other. code completion is available. So when you're not sure, is it this method, how it was renamed, or is it that method? Just go there into the middle and pick the one that you think might work. If it's red, pick the next one. Otherwise, just accept it.
Cool. I will have a play at this, and I'll try and close Smart Git and just primarily use this for Git for a while.
Yeah, I saw this is interesting, but I just briefly saw it. Is it Git? It's called Git Live. That's something I wanted to check out because it seems also quite popular, and it does something like, yeah, you know, similar to Code with Me, what you've also been talking about with Kirill and Martin on the show. But I haven't checked it out, and I think it's even, I'm not sure if it's paid, but I will do maybe in a bit. Yeah, there's definitely some cool stuff, and Git Toolbox I mentioned already is one of the coolest things because it comes with a couple of really useful basic things that you would say should be included already. I'm not sure, where is it? Git Toolbox. Yeah, here. I think it has moved until previously it was not under the version control, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, you can configure a bunch of stuff here, and yeah, integrating Git into an IDE is, or having it integrated is cool stuff, I have to say.
Nice. And to play with plugins more often, really, because I think I've got Azure DevOps and Vim, and those are the only extensions I've installed. So I really need to have a play.
So I can, just to give you a couple of suggestions. Batch script, okay, if you have some batch scripts lying around. This one we talked about. This one I wrote for Fluent Assertions in the series of open source power-ups. That's a series that we have at JetBrains for open source projects. So this comes with two postfix templates and one live template. Fluent validation, that was the first one we created for the series, and that pretty much I can say this is also the coolest in terms of features, what it comes with, or maybe the second coolest. Also live templates, and it also has code inspections, which tell you about mismatched async sync calls, and some other smaller things. IDEA log is great. I can show you something. So in my own open source project recently, and that's also the branch where I'm currently on, I integrated Serilog, because before that I was using some kind of custom, in-house made logging class. Then I switched to Serilog, and now I'm saving these log files into some place, and I call them log. And when I actually open them, these log files, they have to follow a certain format. In this case, they are pipe spaced, but we can actually also use the one with timestamps. And here, this one tells IDEA log is the plugin if it's information, verbose, debug, warning, and error. I'm not sure. I don't have any errors. And then you can go here and, for instance, say I want to show only lines with a W in this field, and whoop, you've hidden all the other lines. You can see all the warnings. You can, even if you have stack traces inside here, you can actually navigate from there. Yeah, navigation works. And this is great. Yeah, this was my part, was basically just following that format. If you have something where you also use that, and with Serilog, just make sure that the output template actually uses these pipes, because that's what IDEA log uses by default. So here you have some kind of configuration for that. Okay, that was about IDEA log, and what else? plugins. Okay, Nuke is my personal project. TeamCity, if you use it, is pretty cool because you get notifications when your build starts. And I think, yeah, at least for my part, that's it. We also created, that's another cool thing. Verify. So Verify is a where is it? It's not here. Verify is a library for asserting your test output. And let's see.
That's the snapshot testing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, Simon. Yeah, this one I can show it with images or with a GIF. And what it does is, or let's hide the lower part for now, is you pass an object, and with every test run, it will compare that to a previously accepted state. And now currently I'm fixing the test, but now it restarts, and you execute that. You see, okay, tests are failing, the verification failed, and then you can accept received. It will mark as outdated also. And for another one, we might want to compare the outputs. Then it will open the compare window, and we can actually fix that and then rerun again, and then they're fixed. So that was another plugin. That was probably the coolest because this one used something where the backend and the front end are actually communicating. So if you go to protocol, for instance, inside the source code, and you can see there's a verify model. And what it does is that the backend can signal that the front end should compare two files with each other. And it can pass, the test name will be passed, the received file and the verified file. And that information is basically what you also see in this little GIF here, because once, let's wait a second. So now the first two are accepted. Then run again. And for the second one, now it sends this information, and this is the test name. Left and right are the two verified and accepted, or verified and received files. So yeah, that was the coolest probably to implement.
Cool. I think I can't remember his name now. Simon, somebody who did the verify thing. He's actually reached out to me about doing a podcast episode, so I need to get back in touch with him and get that sorted on snapshot testing and verify. What's his name? I can't remember his name now.
I do have to say, initially, I expected much less from snapshot testing. I'll be completely honest.
Well, I've heard about it a lot, but I've just never used it myself. So it's kind of.
Well, for me, I looked at it like comparing texts, and that's it. But Simon did a whole lot of other things where he's comparing different things like images, and I'm not sure what else, but quite a lot of stuff. UI elements in a web page, and yeah, it's just pretty impressive, I have to say.
Yeah, for me, it feels like that's UI is where that would shine, because it's kind of like you're just getting rid of all those like selectors, like IDs where you've got to insert them and do that kind of thing. If you can say like, okay, I just care about the final output. Has it changed from what I want it to be?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I remember before we started the call and we were chatting beforehand, you asked me how long should your talk be, and I said, you're talking about riders, so you can talk as long as you want. And then you said, I can keep on talking about rider. You weren't joking, but this is brilliant. I think I need to watch this back a few times to get all the to soak in all the tips.
Well, if I wasn't that bad at writing agendas and all that stuff, I think I could even do part 1 and part 2. Because really what I do for this stuff is usually I don't prepare anything. I just some people don't like it, but usually I start with the abstract things where I don't really use any meaningful code to show that stuff, and then partially walk over there what I personally use. But yeah, getting ready with an actual agenda is quite difficult. Also, I didn't cover refactorings. I didn't cover generation that much. I didn't cover resource files. So yeah, it was not a joke. But I have to say it's much cooler in between to get some questions, or like we're doing now, right? You say a couple of things, and then I say, okay, this is the way I see it, and here's what I think is great about it, and this way that works great.
Cool. Now I feel like I need to come up with a meaningful question, and I've run out now.
No, it's fine. That was cool. I mean, now I can honestly say Michael Stipe did not how do you say over or exaggerate.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, so this was a cool meetup.
As I said to you before, that feels like a lifetime, because that was in person. That was quite a few years ago when he came. Matt, do you remember that one, the GraphQL talk?
Oh, Jesus, that was when we physically met people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Goodness me. I was in the Momo, yeah? In the cellar bit.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was good.